Madam Speaker, let me take this opportunity to clarify some of the points that members have raised to my speech yesterday about the deed of gift, the negotiations between NHB and the executors, the role played by Ms. Lee Swetfen in the process, as well as the due process for conservation and preservation, which Ms. Cheryl Chan also asked just now. First, on the deed of gift, NHB did not approach Ms. Lee Swetfen for advice. She had reached out to NHB to assist in the negotiations. NHB thought that at that time, NHB thought that as a board member, she could be useful as an intermediary to reach a satisfactory outcome with the executors, and indeed, she helped to raise some of NHB's concerns with them. Later, as NHB had to engage in more extensive discussions with the executors to resolve the legal issues, the chairman of NHB approached her on 12th of June to recuse herself on matters concerning the deed, which she did. Throughout this process of negotiations, some of the terms were changed over the course of negotiations, but as I said yesterday, the executors held firm to several key conditions. The $1 buyback provision was, as the lawyer of the executor said, to quote, non-negotiable. The display of Mr. Lee Kuan Yew's wishes in the exhibition. This was something that NHB originally wanted to limit only to the replica of the house that was exhibited, but the executors required this to be displayed prominently in other areas of the exhibition as well. So given the executor's position, NHB really had just two choices: either sign the deed on the stipulated terms or do without the artifacts completely. And we see all of this now with the benefit of hindsight, but it's important to recognize that at that time, no one realized that there were these sharp differences of views between the beneficiaries. The assumption was that the executors spoke for all the beneficiaries, and these were the firm conditions set for the loan or for the donation of the artifacts. In fact, this was my assumption too when NHB initially updated me about their discussion with the executors, and I only realized that the situation was very different when I spoke with the Prime Minister. So under the circumstances, NHB in fact considered this matter very carefully. It was not a rash decision. NHB deliberated over this, and they decided eventually to sign the deed because of several considerations. First, the artifacts had heritage significance. Second, several of the objects were in a deteriorated condition and required immediate care and conservation. And third, all things considered, NHB felt that it would be in the public interest to exhibit these artifacts in this major SG50 exhibition. Next, members, with your indulgence, let me just touch briefly on the due process, which several members also spoke about. As I explained, all sites that have architectural or heritage merits that we have identified, agencies, be it URA or NHB, have identified with some architectural or heritage merits, go through a rigorous due process. And there are two parts to this due process. First part is the research work which is done internally within the government. And there are various agencies involved in this. The key ones, obviously, are NHB and URA, but depending on the situation, other agencies may be involved, like LTA and SLA. The work is done at the staff level, but there have been instances where ministers come together to discuss these proposals, which often require interagency inputs. After this research work, we may not need to do anything with the property at all, unless there is a trigger to take the next step. This trigger can be by the property owner who submits a development application, or it can be by the government to advance a conservation or preservation proposal. When that happens, then we move on to the next step, which is to engage the various stakeholders, including experts, relevant advisory panels and boards, as well as the property owner. And then, after considering all the factors, a decision is made by the government through the various ministries. Several members suggested having more participatory processes to engage and involve the public. We certainly do not preclude this, but we should not end up with a decision to conserve or preserve a building solely based on a public referendum. Just looking at the case of Oxley Road as an example, after the publication of Hard Truths, it appeared that the majority of Singaporeans wanted the house preserved. After Mr. Lee Kuan Yew's passing, the surveys would indicate that the majority wanted the house to be demolished. Nothing has changed with the house. The heritage factors are still the same, but the opinions have shifted. So public mood on these matters can shift depending on circumstances and emotions. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't consult, but architectural and heritage merit careful and rigorous assessments that ought to be done by professionals and subject matter experts. For Oxley Road, this research work is ongoing amongst the various agencies, and the work, as we have discussed, is being overseen by the Ministerial Committee, which will ensure that the due diligence work done is comprehensive and rigorous. And that's what we are trying to do, to be ready with all the options, to have drawer plans fully prepared, so that the government of the day is able to make a decision as and when the time comes.